Welcome to Giza, 2560 BC, the time of the greatest construction project in human history. Today, you will live through a day that will truly change your understanding of the ancient world. You'll discover the secrets of lost technologies that still baffle scientists. You'll meet a brilliant architect whose intellect changed the face of Egypt forever. You'll become acquainted with life in the city of builders, their daily routines and way of life. You'll peek into the palace of the divine pharaoh and learn how the elite lived at the pinnacle of power. Today, you are a master stonemason working on the construction of the Great Pyramid. You are not a slave, but a skilled specialist earning fair payment for your labor. Your hands create what will outlast millennia. You are part of a sacred undertaking. You're building not just a tomb, but a gateway to eternity. And even when you die, you'll be buried with honors beside the pharaoh. If this interests you, leave a like and subscribe. Write in the comments where you're listening from. It matters to me to know who travels with me through the ages. Ready? Close your eyes, feel the coolness of the Egyptian night. Hear the distant cry of a bird over the Nile. Breathe in the scent of sand, stone, and river water. You wake in the pre-dawn hour, when the sky over the Nile Valley is just beginning to change from deep black to dark blue. Your body is tuned to the ancient rhythm of nature. After months of work on the construction of the Great Pyramid, your internal clock no longer needs external signals. You lie on a reed mat in a small house made of unbaked brick, which is part of a vast workers' settlement, built specifically for those raising the pharaoh's monument. More than 4,000 people live here: stonemasons, carpenters, porters, bakers, brewers, physicians, and overseers. Beside you on the mats sleep your wife and 2 children, covered with woolen blankets that protect against the desert's nighttime cold. The air in the room is thick and still, filled with the smells of yesterday's hearth where coals still smoulder, and the light aroma of dried dates stored in a clay pot. You slowly rise, trying not to wake your family, and first thing you find the clay jug of water that your wife filled yesterday evening from the communal well. The water is cool. Overnight, it absorbed the desert's cold. You take several gulps, feeling the life-giving moisture chase away the remnants of sleep, then pour some into your palms and wash your face. This is a simple ritual, but it has deep meaning. Water here, on the edge of the desert, is valued as highly as gold. Every drop considered a gift from the Great Nile. Your clothes lie where you left them yesterday. A linen tunic reaching to the knees and a simple loincloth over it. Egyptian linen is famed throughout the known world for its quality, and even simple workers wear clothing made from this material, though it's coarser and thicker than the finest fabrics worn by the elite. You put on the tunic, which is loose enough not to restrict movement but fully covers your torso, protecting the skin from the merciless sun that in a few hours will turn the Giza plateau into a blazing furnace. On your feet you put simple sandals made of palm fiber. Footwear is essential because the sand and stones by day heat up so much they can burn skin. Many newcomers arriving at the construction site for the first time make the mistake of underestimating the importance of good footwear, and then suffer from blisters for weeks. Breakfast already awaits you. Your wife prepared it yesterday evening, as she does every day. At the edge of the hearth lie 2 round loaves of barley bread and a clay mug of thick beer. Bread in ancient Egypt is not the airy baked goods of modern times, but dense, heavy food that can sustain a person through half a day of hard, physical labor. The grain for bread is ground on stone millstones, and small particles of stone inevitably get into the flour, gradually wearing down Egyptians' teeth. This is one reason why even young people often have dental problems. The beer serves not for intoxication, but as a nutritious drink. It's thick, cloudy, with low alcohol content, more like liquid porridge, rich in B vitamins and calories. A worker's standard ration consists of 10 loaves of bread and a measure of beer daily, and this ration can be used for exchange for other goods, since a monetary system doesn't yet exist in Egypt. While you slowly chew the dense bread, washing it down with beer, your gaze turns to the small window in the wall. The sky has already noticeably brightened, turning from dark blue to soft lilac, and a thin strip of golden light has appeared on the eastern horizon. The stars that shone all night with incredible brightness begin to dim and disappear, one by one. Soon Ra will rise, the great sun god, who each morning is reborn in the east after his nightly journey through the Duat, the underworld of the dead. This is the central part of Egyptian worldview. Each sunrise is a victory of order over chaos, light over darkness, life over death. You finish breakfast and cast a final glance at your sleeping family. Your wife came with you a year ago from your home village when you received a contract to work on the great construction. This decision wasn't easy, to leave the fertile fields and familiar life for the unknown, but the opportunity to participate in building the pharaoh's pyramid was too tempting. Workers here receive regular payment: bread, beer, vegetable oil, sometimes meat and fish. Archaeological studies have shown that pyramid builders faced occupational challenges typical of heavy physical labor in that era. Importantly, evidence also reveals they received medical attention, including treatment for injuries and health conditions. You quietly exit the house, closing the wooden door behind you. The morning coolness embraces you. The temperature in these pre-dawn hours can drop almost to cold, especially in winter. The streets of the workers' settlement are organized with surprising precision. This is not a chaotic cluster of huts, as one might expect, but a planned city with straight streets divided into quarters. This testifies to careful urban planning, separate districts for different specialties, central bakeries capable of producing thousands of loaves of bread daily, breweries, medical facilities where work injuries are treated, and even an administrative center where scribes keep strict records of work and issued rations. From neighboring houses emerge other workers, dressed in similar linen tunics and sandals. You recognize an experienced stonemason with broad shoulders and skilled hands, who has worked on the construction for 5 years already and is considered one of the best masters. Next to him walks a lean but wiry water carrier, whose work is no less important. In conditions of scorching heat, dehydration can kill a person in a few hours, and constant supply of fresh water to workers is a critically important task. You exchange brief nods. Words aren't needed at this early hour, when everyone is focused on the coming day. The sky continues to brighten, and ahead, against the backdrop of the kindling dawn, a massive silhouette begins to take shape: the pharaoh's Great Pyramid, which has already grown to more than half its final height. Even in the half-light, it makes a stunning impression, rising above the plateau like a man-made mountain of 2.5 million stone blocks. This sight each morning reminds you why you're here, why you left your home village, why you agree to heavy labor. You're participating in creating a wonder that will outlive you, your children, your grandchildren, and hundreds of generations after them. A monument that will stand for more than 3,000 years as the tallest structure on Earth. The Giza Plateau rises approximately 60 meters above the valley floor, representing a natural terrace of limestone formed tens of millions of years ago when an ancient ocean lapped here. This very limestone, remaining from the seabed, will become the main building material for the pyramid. The choice of this site for construction is not accidental. The plateau stands on the boundary between life and death, between order and chaos, between earthly and divine. From here opens a view of both sides, the fertile valley on one side and the eternal desert on the other. The pharaoh, whose pyramid stands here, symbolically dominates both worlds. The sky in the east continues to brighten, turning from lilac to rosy gold. The air is still cool and pleasant, but in a few hours the temperature will begin to rise rapidly. By noon it will reach 35 degrees or higher, turning the plateau into a blazing furnace. But now, in these precious morning hours, work proceeds in comfortable conditions. This is precisely why the working day begins with the first rays of sun. Every minute of coolness must be used. Finally, the sun appears on the horizon, and its first rays touch the eastern face of the pyramid. All the workers who have reached the construction site stop and turn to face the east. This is a sacred moment, the rebirth of Ra, the sun god. You fold your hands before your chest and speak a brief prayer, joining hundreds of other voices. Hail Ra, Lord of Morning. Grant us strength for this day. May our hands be steady and our work pleasing to the gods. This prayer is not merely ritual, it reminds of the higher purpose of your labor. You're building not just a tomb, but a sacred instrument that will allow the pharaoh after death to join Ra in his eternal journey across the sky, ensuring Egypt's prosperity for thousands of years forward. The workers took pride in their contribution to this sacred project. Many left graffiti inside the pyramid, marks of their work crews with names like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure, showing the camaraderie and team spirit among the builders. After the prayer, work begins, and you head to your workplace in the quarry, located several hundred meters from the pyramid itself. Here, in this enormous pit carved into the limestone plateau, an amazing picture of organized labor unfolds. Hundreds of workers are engaged in various tasks, and each knows his place in the complex system that allows turning rock into monument. To understand the scale of the task, imagine the Great Pyramid will consist of 2.5 million stone blocks, each weighing on average 2.5 tons. This means that over 20 years of construction, about 340 blocks must be quarried, processed, and laid every single day, even on rest days and holidays. The process begins with stone extraction. The main limestone is quarried right here on the Giza Plateau, in enormous open quarries that over time will become deep excavations. Egyptian stonemasons developed an efficient technology for extracting blocks from the bedrock. First, experienced workers study the stone structure, looking for natural layers and cracks that can be used. Then deep channels are cut around the perimeter of the future block, trenches about 60 centimeters wide and up to a meter deep. This is done with copper chisels and wooden mallets with stone heads, blow after blow, day after day. Copper is a relatively soft metal, but the Egyptians learned to make it harder through cold forging and adding small amounts of arsenic. Nevertheless, chisels quickly dull and must constantly be sharpened or replaced. Archaeologists have calculated that building the Great Pyramid alone required thousands of tons of copper tools. After the trenches are cut on 3 sides, the decisive moment arrives, separating the block from the bedrock. Here an ancient but ingeniously simple method is used. In the lower part of the block, at the base of the trench, small holes are carved into which wooden wedges are inserted. These wedges are then abundantly soaked with water. The wood swells, increasing in volume, and creates colossal pressure, sufficient to split the stone along the natural layer line. The process can take several hours or even days, but it works unfailingly. When you hear the characteristic crack of splitting stone, it means another block is ready for extraction. For the hardest rocks, such as granite brought from the Aswan quarries 800 kilometers up the Nile, a different technique is used, dolerite, an even harder rock, from which balls weighing up to 12 kilograms are made, with which workers methodically pound the stone, pulverizing it bit by bit. Transporting the blocks is a separate marvel of engineering thought. Once a block is separated from the rock, massive wooden sledges are placed underneath. Wood for the sledges is brought from distant Lebanon, the famous Lebanese cedar, one of the few sources of quality timber in a region where trees are rare. The sledges consist of a sturdy frame made of thick beams onto which the block is placed. Thick ropes woven from papyrus or palm fiber are tied to the sledges. Recently, archaeologists discovered an ancient image in a tomb dated to approximately this same era, showing how 172 people pull an alabaster statue weighing 60 tons on sledges. What's surprising, a person walks in front of the sledges and pours water onto the sand. This is not a ritual, but practical technology. Modern experiments have proven that wet sand creates an ideal surface for sliding. It's firm enough not to sink and slippery enough to reduce friction by almost half. Too dry sand crumbles under the sledges, too wet turns into sticky mud. But properly moistened sand allows cutting the required number of workers almost in half. But most blocks are transported not overland, but by water. The Nile River is Egypt's main transportation artery, and the pyramid builders used it to the fullest. In 2013, French archaeologists discovered ancient papyrus scrolls in a cave by the Red Sea, the diary of an overseer named Mera, who led a team of 40 workers. This document, written 4,500 years ago, describes in detail how blocks of white limestone from the Tura quarries, located on the eastern bank of the Nile 15 kilometers from Giza, were transported on special barges. These blocks of Tura limestone were especially valued for their whiteness and fine-grained structure. These were used to make the pyramid's outer casing, which was meant to shine in the sun like a giant precious stone. During the Nile's annual flood, when the water rises several meters, specially dug canals fill with water, allowing barges to approach almost directly to the construction site. Archaeological research has confirmed the existence of an ancient harbor at the foot of the Giza Plateau, and a network of canals used for delivering materials. However, the most difficult task is not quarrying or transportation, but lifting the blocks to height. The pyramid grows upward, and stones must be raised higher and higher. By the completion of construction, some blocks will be at a height of 146 meters above the ground. How to do this without cranes, without pulleys, without steel cables? The answer: ramps. Around the pyramid, a complex system of sloped roads is built from mud brick and stone debris. Several theories exist about how exactly these ramps look. Perhaps it was one straight ramp that stretched from the pyramid's base and gradually lengthened as the height grew to maintain a gentle angle of incline. Such a ramp by the end of construction could reach a length of more than 1.5 kilometers. Another theory suggests a spiral ramp that winds around the pyramid like a staircase. A third, recently proposed by a French architect, speaks of an internal ramp, a tunnel inside the pyramid itself, along which blocks were raised. regardless of configuration. The principle of ramp operation is the same. The angle of incline must be gentle enough, usually about 7 degrees, so that a team of workers can pull a block upward. Modern experiments have shown that 18 people can haul a block weighing 2.5 tons up a ramp with a slope of 1 to 4 at a speed of approximately 18 meters per minute. This is hard work, requiring coordination and endurance, but quite achievable. To synchronize efforts, workers sing rhythmic songs. The foreman sets the rhythm, and the rest join in. These work songs, some of which have survived to our time in the form of inscriptions, usually glorify the pharaoh and call upon the gods to help with the work. The precision with which the pyramid is built astonishes even modern engineers. The pyramid's base is an almost perfect square with sides of 230 meters, and the difference between the longest and shortest side is only 2 centimeters. This is incredible accuracy for a structure of such scale built 4,500 years ago. How did the Egyptians achieve this? They used a brilliant leveling technique using water. Shallow trenches were dug around the base of the future pyramid and filled with water. Water always finds its level. This is a fundamental law of physics. Workers marked the water level on the trench walls, then drained the water and cut the bedrock to the marked level. The result, a perfectly horizontal surface that serves as the foundation for the entire structure. The pyramid's orientation to the cardinal directions also demonstrates the Egyptians' deep astronomical knowledge. The pyramid's 4 faces point exactly north, south, east, and west with accuracy to fractions of a degree. In an era when magnetic compasses didn't exist, this was achieved through astronomical observations. The architect used the Indian circle method. A vertical pole was driven into the ground, and throughout the day 2 points were marked, where the end of its shadow had equal length before sunrise and after sunset. The line connecting these 2 points indicates exactly east and west. To determine true north, they observed the rotation of stars around the northern celestial pole and marked the rising and setting points of certain circumpolar stars. Some researchers suggest more complex methods were used, based on observing the star that in that era was closest to the North Pole, Alpha Draconis. The organization of labor on the pyramid's construction resembles a modern factory. Thousands of workers are divided into specialized crews. Some quarry stone, others process it, still others transport it, a 4th group lays it. There's a clear hierarchy from simple workers to masters, from masters to overseers, from overseers to architects. Each morning, overseers conduct roll call, distribute assignments, issue tools from the warehouse. Scribes keep meticulous records: how many blocks quarried, how many processed, how many laid, how many workers present, how many rations issued. This bureaucratic system allows coordinating the labor of tens of thousands of people and tracking the progress of a grandiose project calculated for decades. You're one small cog in this enormous machine, but without cogs like you, the machine wouldn't work. Your workplace is in the quarry sector, set aside for final processing of blocks. Roughly hewn chunks of limestone are delivered here, which need to be transformed into perfectly even rectangles, ready for laying in the pyramid. This is work requiring not only physical strength, but also a precise eye, patience, and many years of experience. You apprenticed in this craft for 3 years under an old master in your home village before earning the right to work on the great construction. Stonemason is a respected profession in Egypt, and good masters are highly valued. Your tools lie where you left them yesterday evening, in a special storage facility where all work implements are kept under guard. Each morning you receive them according to a name list and each evening return them. This strict rule exists because copper tools are very valuable. The main tool is a copper chisel about 30 centimeters long with a wide blade. You have several for different types of work. A wide chisel for removing large volumes of stone, medium for finer work, narrow for details. Next lies a wooden mallet with a head of hard stone, diorite or granite. This mallet has served you for several months already, its handle polished from constant contact with your palms. You also have a wooden ruler, a cubit in length, the standard unit of length in Egypt, equal to approximately 52 centimeters, and a simple plumb line, a rope with a weight on the end, which allows checking the verticality of faces. The master overseer approaches you and points to a block requiring processing. It's a massive piece of local limestone, already partially processed by other workers, but still far from perfect. Its dimensions are approximately 1 meter 20 in length, 80 centimeters in height, and 70 centimeters in width, standard block size for the pyramid's main body. Those sizes can vary depending on which part of the structure the stone is intended for. You walk around the block, carefully studying its surface, running your hand over the irregularities, planning the sequence of actions. A good stone mason must see the future result in unprocessed stone, as a sculptor sees a statue in a block of marble. You begin with the most protruding face. You place the chisel at an angle of approximately 30 degrees to the surface and strike with the mallet. The sound is sharp, clean, metal meets stone, and a small chip breaks off. The strike must be precise and controlled. Any sentence mentioning drum skin in relation to mummified bodies, too weak a blow gives no result. Years of practice have taught you to find the right balance. You work methodically, row after row, removing irregularities, approaching the perfect plane. It's a meditative process, blow after blow, in constant rhythm. Your thoughts calm, the world narrows to this stone, this chisel, this rhythm. Around you, dozens of other stonemasons work, and the air fills with a symphony of metal on stone. Hundreds of strikes merge into a single cacophony of labor. The sun climbs higher, and the temperature begins to rise. Dust, a constant companion of your work, hangs in the air, settles on skin, hair, penetrates nose and mouth. By day's end, you'll be white from head to toe, like a ghost. Some workers tie wet strips of cloth around nose and mouth to avoid breathing too much stone dust, but this helps only partially. Long-term inhalation of limestone dust can cause lung disease, which Egyptian physicians try to treat with herbal decoctions and inhalations. Archaeologists, who millennia later will study the remains of pyramid builders, will discover signs of such occupational diseases in bones and teeth, but will also find evidence of medical care, traces of surgical operations, applied splints, treatment of fractures. After several hours of work, you periodically stop to check your progress. You place the wooden ruler against the processed surface, looking to see if there are gaps between ruler and stone. A gap wider than a finger's width is unacceptable. The block will be rejected by the master. You also use the plumb line to check corners. All faces must be perpendicular to each other with high accuracy. Blocks must fit tightly together when laid in the pyramid, so tightly that it's impossible to insert even a knife blade between them. This precision is not mere perfectionism, it's necessary for the pyramid's structural integrity. Millions of tons of stone will press from above, and any irregularities can create stress points that over time will lead to cracks or collapse. By midday comes the hottest time. Temperature reaches its peak, and work becomes an almost impossible task. Stones heat up so much it hurts to touch them with bare hands. This is when a break for lunch and rest is announced. Overseers give the Amod signal, and workers set aside tools and head to the canopies, simple shelters of reed mats stretched over wooden posts. Here, in the saving shade, you can rest and restore strength. Water carriers walk among the workers, filling clay cups from large jugs. The water is warm, with a slight clay taste, but it's precious. You drink greedily, feeling moisture return life to your parched body. Lunch is distributed from the workers' settlement central kitchen. Porters bring large baskets of bread, bundles of green onions and garlic, sometimes dried fish. On special days, when an important stage of work is completed or a religious holiday is celebrated, they might give meat, usually beef or goat, and of course, beer. Thick, nutritious beer that constitutes an important part of the diet. According to records in papyri, each worker receives a standard ration calculated to provide enough calories for heavy physical labor. Interestingly, archaeologists discovered animal bones on the territory of the workers' settlement that show the builders ate surprisingly well. Beef, goat, pork, poultry, fish. This confirms that workers were not slaves, but paid workers who were cared for. Modern archaeological discoveries have revealed that pyramid builders were well cared for workers, not slaves. They received medical treatment, proper burial, and even workers' compensation for injuries. This challenges many popular myths about pyramid construction. During the lunch break, you sit together with other stone masons from your crew. Conversation flows unhurriedly about work, about families, about the upcoming rest day. Egyptians work by a cycle system: 9 days of work, 1 day of rest. This 10-day cycle, called a decade, is the foundation of the Egyptian calendar. The rest day is time when you can be with family, attend to household matters, visit the local temple for prayers. One of the stone masons tells that his wife is expecting a 3rd child. Another complains about lower back pain that hasn't gone away for several days. Someone mentions seeing a procession of priests heading to the pyramid last night, and talk begins about secret rituals and magical ceremonies performed inside the unfinished structure. After lunch, when the strongest heat subsides slightly, work resumes, but the pace becomes slower. Every movement requires more effort. Sweat flows in streams, muscles ache from strain. But you continue. You have a quota, a certain volume of work that must be completed. If the quota isn't met regularly, this can lead to ration reduction or even dismissal. But if you work well and consistently, there's a chance for promotion. The best stone masons can become master's assistants and then become masters themselves, leading crews. This means higher pay, less physical strain, and more respect. By day's end, when the sun begins to descend toward the western horizon, the master overseer comes for inspection. He carefully examines the block you've been processing all day, runs his hand over the surface, checks corners with his square, applies a ruler to the faces. The silence seems eternal. Then he nods. The work is accepted. You feel relief and quiet pride. Another day completed. Another block ready to become part of eternity. The master makes a mark on a clay tablet. He keeps records of work completed by each worker. These records will be passed to scribes who will enter them into the main registers. At the end of the month, based on these records, your ration will be calculated. When the sun touches the horizon, a long horn sound rings out, the signal for end of the working day. Across the entire construction site, thousands of workers set down their tools. You carry the chisels and mallet back to the warehouse, where a special keeper accepts them and makes a notation. Then you head to the place where porters distribute water for washing. You wash off the white dust as much as possible, feeling cool water refresh your skin. Your body is tired, muscles ache, hands are covered with small scratches and fresh calluses over old ones. But there's deep satisfaction from work well done. You're creating something that will outlive you by thousands of years. The man standing behind the grandiose project of the Great Pyramid remains an almost mythical figure for simple workers. This is the pharaoh's vizier, the second most important person in all of Egypt after the divine ruler himself. His power extends over the entire country. He holds the royal seal, which means the right to approve decrees in the pharaoh's name. He bears many titles, but the most important is overseer of all the king's construction project. This means every stone, every line, every angle of the Great Pyramid passes through his mind and his hands. What makes his position even more remarkable, he is the nephew of the pharaoh himself. His father was a prince, son of the great Sneferu, pharaoh of the previous generation, who himself built 3 pyramids and laid the foundations for the architectural achievements of the 4th dynasty. Thus, architecture literally flows in this man's blood. He grew up among the greatest builders of the age, watching his grandfather revolutionize the art of pyramid building, transforming stepped structures into smooth geometric wonders. His education began in the temples of Heliopolis, the ancient city of the sun, where priests preserved Egypt's most sacred knowledge. Here he studied mathematics, not simple arithmetic, but complex calculations of proportions, angles, volumes. Egyptian mathematicians developed a system based on fractions and geometry that allowed solving practical construction problems with astonishing accuracy. He studied astronomy, observing the movement of stars through the years, composing star charts, understanding the cycles of celestial bodies. He studied the architecture of previous generations, analyzing the mistakes and successes of the pyramids of Djoser, Sneferu, and other pharaohs. When the young pharaoh ascended to the throne and announced his desire to build the greatest pyramid of all that had ever existed, it was this man who received the task of turning ambition into reality. The task seemed almost impossible: to build a structure nearly 150 meters high, with a base more than 230 meters on each side, perfectly oriented to the cardinal directions, with internal chambers and passages designed for millennia. But he accepted the challenge. His first achievement was leveling the pyramid's base with incredible precision. Using the water channel method, he created a perfectly horizontal platform of more than 5 hectares, where the difference in height is only 2 centimeters. Then he calculated the precise orientation to the cardinal directions, using astronomical observations of circumpolar stars. He developed a system of ramps for lifting millions of tons of stone to dizzying heights. He organized the logistics that allowed coordinating the labor of tens of thousands of workers over 2 decades. But his genius manifested not only in technical solutions. He understood that the pyramid must be not merely large, it must be perfect in proportions, an embodiment of divine geometry. The face angle of 52 degrees was not chosen randomly. This is the optimal balance between stability and aesthetics. The internal layout, with its ascending and descending corridors, with the grand gallery and burial chamber, reflects the complex cosmology of the Egyptians about the soul's journey to the afterlife. His own tomb, a massive mastaba located in the Western Cemetery beside the pyramid, is larger than all other courtiers' tombs. Archaeologists who will investigate it millennia later will discover that even the dimensions of his own tomb contain mathematical keys to the proportions of the Great Pyramid, as if he encrypted his knowledge in the stone of his final resting place. This is a man whose intellect changed the face of Egypt forever. In the evening, when work ends and you return to the settlement, workers' conversations inevitably return to one question. Why? Why is this enormous mountain of stone needed? Why does the pharaoh spend such colossal resources, mobilize tens of thousands of people for decades, exhaust the kingdom's treasury for one tomb? The answer to this question is rooted in the very essence of the Egyptian worldview, in their understanding of the universe's structure and the place of man, especially the divine pharaoh, in the cosmic order. The ancient Egyptians see the world as a fragile balance between order and chaos. Order is called Mat. This is not simply a concept of justice or truth, it's the fundamental structure of reality. Mat is what keeps the sun on its path across the sky, makes the Nile flood each year at the right time, maintains the change of seasons, ensures birth and death in an eternal cycle. Chaos, called Isfet, constantly threatens to destroy this order. It lives in the desert, in storms, in drought, in disease, in death. The pharaoh's role is to maintain Maat, to be the living embodiment of divine order on earth. When the pharaoh dies, this creates a cosmic crisis. The divine protector of order leaves the earthly world. If his transition to the afterlife doesn't proceed successfully, if he cannot join the gods and continue to protect Egypt from the celestial realm, Maat may collapse. This is precisely why the pyramid is not merely a tomb. It's a complex transformation machine, an instrument that will ensure the pharaoh's successful ascent to the stars and his eternal existence among the gods. The pyramid's shape has deep symbolic meaning. Its sloping faces represent frozen rays of the sun, piercing clouds and touching the earth. This is a literal ladder of light by which the pharaoh's spirit will rise to the sun god Ra. Ancient Egyptian texts that will later be carved on the walls of pyramids of following dynasties, the so-called pyramid texts, humanity's oldest religious texts, speak of this directly. O king, you are this great star, companion of Orion, crossing the sky with Orion. The sky has become pregnant with you together with Orion. These texts contain hundreds of spells and formulas designed to help the pharaoh's spirit on his journey. The key pyramid's internal structure is designed in accordance with cosmological concepts. The pharaoh's burial chamber is located not at the base, but in the very heart of the pyramid, approximately 1/3 of the height from the ground. This symbolizes a position between earth and sky, between the world of the living and the world of the dead. From this chamber lead narrow shafts, the so-called ventilation channels, though their purpose is not ventilation at all. These shafts are directed with incredible precision at specific stars. The southern shaft from the burial chamber points to the constellation that Egyptians call Sa, the modern constellation Orion, especially the three bright stars of Orion's belt. For Egyptians, Orion is the celestial embodiment of Osiris, the great god of the underworld, who himself passed through death and resurrection. According to the myth, Osiris was killed by his jealous brother Set, and his body was separated into parts and scattered across Egypt. his faithful wife Isis gathered them together and, through her powerful magic, restored him to life. His faithful wife Isis gathered the pieces and with the help of magic resurrected him. Osiris became lord of the Duat, the underworld realm of the dead, judge of souls. Each pharaoh after death is identified with Osiris, passing through the same transformation from death to eternal life. The northern shaft, from the same chamber, points to the region of circumpolar stars, stars that never set below the horizon, eternally rotating around the northern pole of the sky. In the era of the pyramid's construction, the star closest to the pole was Alpha Draconis, though it wasn't exactly at the pole. These undying stars are called the imperishable ones. They symbolize eternity and immortality. By directing the shaft at these stars, the architects created a path for the pharaoh's spirit, a stellar corridor along which he can reach the realm of eternal life. The process of preparing the pharaoh for the afterlife begins immediately after death. The body is transported to a special house of purification, where priest embalmers begin the lengthy mummification process, which takes 70 days. This is not simply body preservation, it's a sacred ritual of transformation. The mummification process involved careful preservation of the body. Internal organs were respectfully removed and placed in 4 canopic jars, each protected by one of the 4 sons of Horus, Imseti, Hapi, Duamutef, and Kebesenuef. This sacred procedure required 70 days and was performed by highly skilled priest embalmers. The body was treated with natron, a natural salt that preserved the tissues and prevented decomposition. After 70 days, this sacred process was complete, and the body was ready for the next stage of preparation for eternity. Then the body is washed, anointed with fragrant oils and resins, wrapped in hundreds of meters of linen bandages. Between the layers of bandages, amulets are placed, scarabs, djed symbols, eyes of Horus, each with a magical protective function. The entire process is accompanied by continuous prayers and incantations. When the body is ready, the funeral procession begins. This is a grandiose spectacle in which thousands of people participate. The pharaoh's mummy is placed in a series of nested coffins, each more luxurious than the previous, the last of pure gold. The coffins are transported on special sledges to the pyramid. Ahead walk priests with incense censers. Professional mourners tear their clothes and sprinkle their heads with ash, displaying grief. Musicians play funeral melodies on harps and flutes. They carry gifts for the afterlife: furniture, clothing, weapons, food, wine, jewels. At the pyramid's entrance, a critically important ritual is performed: opening of the mouth. A priest in the mask of the god Anubis touches the mummy's face with a special instrument, pronouncing incantations. This ritual magically restores the mummy's ability to breathe, speak, eat, see, and hear in the afterlife. Without this ritual, the pharaoh's spirit would remain trapped in a lifeless body. Then the mummy is solemnly carried inside the pyramid, through narrow passages, past false doors and blocking stones, into the grand gallery, an ascending corridor with a ceiling nearly 9 meters high, whose walls converge upward in steps, creating an effect of infinity. At the end of the gallery lies the burial chamber, a room lined with granite brought from the Aswan quarries 800 kilometers away. Here stands a sarcophagus made from a single block of red granite, so large that it must have been placed here during the pyramid's construction. It's impossible to bring it through the narrow passages. When completed, The pyramid was covered in brilliant white Tura limestone casing stones that reflected sunlight, making it visible for miles across the desert. Ancient writers described it as a wonder that seemed to glow like a jewel. Though most of these outer stones were later removed, the pyramid's core has stood for over 4,500 years, a testament to the skill of its builders. The mummy is placed in the sarcophagus. Objects for the afterlife are arranged around it. Final prayers are read. Then the priests exit, leaving the pharaoh alone in darkness and silence to begin his journey through the Duat. This journey, according to religious texts, is full of dangers. The spirit must pass through the 12 hours of night, each hour representing a separate region of the underworld, populated by demons, serpents, monsters. But the pharaoh is armed with knowledge, spells and formulas that allow him to repel attacks, overcome obstacles, open locked gates. The journey's culmination, the Hall of Two Truths, where the judgment of Osiris takes place. The pharaoh's heart is weighed on scales against the feather of Maat, symbol of truth and justice. If the heart proved heavier than the feather of Maat, weighed down by wrongdoing, the soul could not pass Osiris's judgment. The deceased would not achieve eternal life in the field of reeds, the Egyptian paradise where the blessed lived forever in peace and abundance. But the pharaoh, having lived according to Maat, having ruled justly, having performed the rituals, will pass this test. His heart will be lighter than the feather. Osiris will proclaim, "You are justified," and the gates to eternal life will open. Then the pharaoh's spirit rises through the pyramid star shafts, following the rays of frozen sunlight from which the pyramid's faces are composed. He reaches the sky and joins Ra in his daily journey. Each morning, Ra is reborn in the east, crosses the sky in his solar bark, battling the forces of chaos, and each evening dies in the west to journey through the underworld at night and be reborn again. The pharaoh is now part of this eternal cycle, a divine guardian who from the celestial realm continues to protect Egypt, ensure the Nile's floods, bless harvests, grant victory in battles. The pyramid remains as the physical embodiment of this spiritual journey. Its massiveness guarantees it will stand forever, protecting the pharaoh's body from destruction. Its geometric perfection reflects the divine order of the universe. Its orientation to the stars maintains the connection between earth and sky. This is not a dead monument, but a living mechanism, a constantly functioning machine of immortality that ensures the pharaoh's eternal existence and, through him, the eternal prosperity of all Egypt. The workers' settlement where you've lived for more than a year represents an amazing example of organized society in miniature. Archaeologists who will excavate its remains millennia later will call this place one of the first known workers' cities in human history. A specially planned settlement built to house thousands of people engaged in a single grandiose project. The city is divided into quarters, each designated for a specific category of workers and their families. Your house is in the stonemasons' quarter, rows of small single-story structures of sun-dried mud brick. Each house has roughly the same layout: a central room with a hearth for cooking, a small bedroom, sometimes an additional space for storing tools or supplies. On the roof, flat and sturdy, you can sleep on especially hot nights when the air inside becomes unbearably stuffy. Houses stand close together, separated by narrow alleys barely wider than a meter. This not only saves space but creates shade that protects from the scorching sun. The settlement has everything necessary for autonomous life. Central bakeries work around the clock, producing thousands of loaves of bread daily. Their conical clay ovens reach such high temperatures they can bake bread in mere minutes. Nearby are the breweries, where in huge clay vats barley ferments, turning into nutritious beer. The smell of fresh bread and the sourish aroma of fermentation are constant companions of life in the settlement. Medical care is organized surprisingly well. There's a special facility that can be called a hospital, where physicians work, people trained in temple schools in the art of healing. Pyramid construction is dangerous work and injuries are inevitable. Falling stones break bones, tools slip and cause cuts. Heavy labor leads to sprains and dislocations. Egyptian doctors know how to set splints on broken bones using palm fibers and wooden planks. They stitch wounds with copper needles and linen thread. They know hundreds of medicinal plants: mint for calming the stomach, opium poppy for pain, honey as an antiseptic for wounds. Family life in the settlement flows in a measured rhythm. Women handle household duties, prepare food, bake additional bread, brew beer for the family, weave fabrics, raise children. Some women work on the construction site itself as water carriers or helpers in the bakeries. Children run between houses, play simple games with a ball made of papyrus with wooden toys depicting animals. Older children help their parents, learning the craft or household responsibilities. Every 10th day is a rest day. When work on the pyramid stops, this is time for family, for house repairs, for personal matters. On these days, many visit the small temple built in the settlement, where they can pray to the gods, leave modest offerings, some bread, a mug of beer, a bundle of onions. Priests perform simple rituals, read prayers for the workers' health and the construction's success. Camaraderie among workers is strong. When someone falls ill or gets injured, others help his family, bring extra food, help with housework, look after children. When a child is born, the whole quarter celebrates. When someone dies, and death is not rare under conditions of heavy labor and primitive medicine, everyone gathers for the funeral. Workers are buried in a special cemetery near the settlement, in simple graves but with necessary provisions for the afterlife. Even a simple worker has the right to a dignified burial and hope for eternal life. In the evenings, when the sun sets and coolness returns, people gather by their homes. Men tell stories about work, about the day's difficulties, about achievements. Women exchange news and gossip. Sometimes someone takes out a simple flute or drum, and music begins. Children dance, adults sing along to familiar melodies. These moments of human warmth and connection make the hard life bearable, remind you that you're not just a cog in a huge machine, but a living person with family, friends, hopes, and dreams. While you chisel stones under Giza's scorching sun, in the capital Memphis, located approximately 25 kilometers to the south, an entirely different reality unfolds. Pharaoh Khufu lives in an enormous palace complex that is itself an architectural wonder. The palace is built from the empire's finest materials: white limestone from Tura, red granite from Aswan, cedar beams from Lebanon, whose cost is measured in tons of gold. The walls are covered with bright frescoes depicting the pharaoh's victories over enemies, scenes from the lives of gods, idealized pictures of Egypt as a land of abundance and order. The pharaoh himself is a living god, the embodiment of Horus on earth, son of Ra, the connecting link between the world of humans and the world of the divine. This is not a metaphor, but a fundamental religious truth for Egyptians. When he speaks, the gods speak through his mouth. When he commands, the universe must obey. His royal titulary consists of 5 names, each carrying deep symbolic meaning and connecting him to various aspects of divine power. Khufu's main name means "he protects me," a reference to the god Khnum, creator of humans. The pharaoh's day begins with purification rituals performed by specially trained priests. He is bathed with water from sacred sources, mixed with fragrant oils, myrrh from Punt, frankincense from Arabia, lily oil from the Nile marshes. He is dressed by servants. The process can take an hour because the pharaoh's clothing consists of many layers of the finest linen. Over the clothing, jewels are placed, necklaces of gold and lapis lazuli, bracelets inlaid with turquoise and carnelian, a belt with gold plates. On his head is placed the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, the Shent, symbolizing the unification of the 2 lands under one ruler's power. The pharaoh's breakfast is a feast capable of feeding an entire village. Tables groan with fresh bread made from the finest ground wheat flour, nothing like the rough barley bread of workers. They serve roasted meat of several kinds, beef from specially fattened bulls, goat, duck, goose, quail, fresh fish from the Nile, perch and tilapia prepared with herbs, fruits from the palace gardens, dates, figs, pomegranates, grapes, melons, honey from royal apiaries, dairy products, fresh vegetables. All this is seasoned with rare spices imported from distant lands. The pharaoh drinks not the thick workers' beer, but aged wine from the Nile Delta vineyards, stored in sealed amphorae marked with the harvest year and vineyard, the earliest examples of wine labels in history. After breakfast, the pharaoh attends to state affairs. Egypt under the 4th dynasty is at the peak of its power, a centralized state with an efficient bureaucracy that governs territory from Nubia in the south to the Mediterranean Sea in the north. The pharaoh receives the vizier, who reports on the state of affairs in the nomes, Egypt's administrative regions. Tax collection is discussed, which in this period happens not in money, it hasn't been invented yet, but in kind, grain, livestock, linen, craft products. Scribes keep meticulous records of every transaction. The pharaoh also receives foreign ambassadors. Egypt of the 4th dynasty conducts active foreign trade. Expeditions are sent to Punt for incense, to Sinai for copper and turquoise, to Nubia for gold and ebony, to Lebanon for cedar. With some regions, trade is conducted peacefully. Others must be subdued by military force. The pharaoh's army, though not as large as it will be in the New Kingdom, is effective enough to defend borders and conduct punitive expeditions against rebellious tribes. The power of priests in this period is enormous. The high priest of Ra in Heliopolis controls not only religious life, but also significant economic resources. Temples own vast land holdings worked by thousands of peasants. The temple economy is parallel to the royal one and sometimes competes with it. Priests preserve ancient knowledge, astronomical observations, mathematical formulas, medical texts, written on papyrus and carefully guarded. They train scribes, physicians, architects. The pharaoh must maintain balance, respecting the priests' power, but not allowing them to become too independent. The highest aristocracy, viziers, military commanders, chief scribes, nomarchs, live in luxurious villas in the best districts of Memphis. Their houses are complexes with many rooms, inner courtyards, gardens with ponds and pavilions. Walls are decorated with frescoes and reliefs, floors of polished stone. The houses have furniture from rare woods, beds on legs shaped like lion paws, chairs inlaid with ivory, tables of ebony. They have servants who perform all work, cook, clean, wash, tend the garden. Elite clothing is made from linen of such fine weave that modern textile technologies can barely reproduce it. Some samples preserved in tombs have a weave density of up to 200 threads per inch, comparable to high-quality silk. Elite women wear elaborate wigs of human hair, decorated with gold pins, ribbons, sometimes even thin gold tubes woven into braids. Cosmetics are an entire art. Eyes are outlined with black coal and green malachite paint, which not only beautifies but also protects from sun and infections. They use rouge from ochre, lipstick from red clay, aromatic oils. Education is available only to children of the elite. Schools exist at temples where boys are taught reading and writing, a complex system of hieroglyphs including hundreds of signs. Training begins at age 4 or 5 and continues for about 10 years. Students copy classical texts, learn mathematics, study literature. Discipline in ancient Egyptian education was strict and demanding. Historical sources mention that teachers used physical discipline, which was considered normal in that era. An ancient saying reflects this: "A boy's ears are on his back," showing the educational philosophy of the time, though today we understand the importance of different teaching approaches. Those who successfully complete training become scribes, a privileged class of literate people who conduct all the state's administrative work. A scribe doesn't engage in physical labor. He sits in the shade, recording taxes, drafting legal documents, copying religious texts, managing construction projects. The position of scribe is passed down by inheritance, creating dynasties of literate families. Their respect in society is enormous. Elite entertainment is varied. Desert hunting for lions and antelopes is a favorite pastime of nobility, demonstrating bravery and strength. Nile fishing with harpoons for hippopotamuses is a dangerous sport requiring courage. Feasts with music and dancing are an obligatory part of aristocratic life. At such feasts, exotic dishes are served, the best wines are poured, professional musicians perform on harps, lutes, flutes. Dancers perform complex numbers, their movements graceful and rehearsed. The contrast between elite life and simple workers is colossal, but Egyptian society sees no injustice in this. This is part of Mut, cosmic order, where everyone has their place. The pharaoh at the top is a living god. Below him, priests and aristocracy who help him rule. Lower are scribes and craftsmen, whose skills are necessary for the state's functioning. At the base of the pyramid, peasants and workers whose labor feeds everyone. Each level depends on the others. The pharaoh needs workers for pyramid construction. Workers need the pharaoh to maintain Mut, ensure the Nile's flooding, protect from enemies. This is a symbiotic system that functions for centuries, creating one of the most enduring civilizations in human history. While you lay stone upon stone, creating a structure that seems eternal, you cannot know what fate awaits your work in the future. The Great Pyramid will stand for more than 3,800 years as the tallest structure created by humans, until in the 14th century AD the cathedral in Lincoln, England, surpasses it in height. But even then the pyramid will remain the most massive stone structure on the planet and one of the most recognizable symbols of human civilization. The pyramid's history after construction. Completion begins with triumph, but quickly becomes a story of decline and looting. When Pharaoh Khufu dies after approximately 23 years of rule, his body is mummified and with great ceremony placed in the sarcophagus in the pyramid's very heart. The burial chamber is filled with treasures, gold, precious stones, sacred texts, everything necessary for the afterlife. Then massive granite plugs weighing tons slide down inclined shafts, permanently sealing the passages. The pyramid's entrance is carefully disguised, closed with blocks of Tura limestone, polished and fitted so perfectly that the outer casing looks like a seamless hole. But the protection proves insufficient. Already during the first intermediate period, approximately 1,000 years after construction, when central authority weakens and Egypt plunges into chaos, the era of tomb robbers begins. These are not primitive lone thieves, but organized criminal groups, often including corrupt officials who know the treasure's locations. Papyrus documents dated to approximately the 11th century BC preserve confessions of captured robbers. One of them, a mason named Amenpanufa, recounts, "We took our copper tools and made our way into the pyramid through its interior. We entered the tomb and discovered evidence that others had visited before us." Historical records tell us that tomb robbers sometimes took valuables from royal burials, though the consequences were severe if they were caught. But this didn't stop thieves, because the potential loot was too great. By the end of the New Kingdom, most royal tombs, including pyramids, were completely looted. Priests of the 21st dynasty, trying to save at least the pharaoh's mummies, gathered them from looted tombs and secretly reburied them in hidden caches. The fate of Khufu's own mummy is unknown. When in the 9th century, AD Caliph al-Mamun tunneled into the pyramid seeking treasures, he found the burial chamber empty, the sarcophagus without a lid. No traces of mummy or treasures. The pyramid's outer casing of white Tura limestone, which once gleamed in the sun like a giant jewel, met a sad fate. In the Middle Ages, when Cairo grew and required building materials, people began removing the casing stones from the pyramid and using them to build mosques and palaces. An earthquake in the 13th century loosened many blocks, making them even more accessible for dismantling. By the 15th century, almost all the casing had disappeared. What we see today, a stepped structure of rough local limestone, is actually the pyramid's inner core, never intended for display. But it's in the modern era that true scientific understanding of the pyramids begins. In 1798, Napoleon brings to Egypt not only an army, but a team of more than 150 scientists, engineers, and artists. They conduct the first systematic measurements of the pyramids, create detailed drawings, describe hieroglyphs. The results are published in the monumental multi-volume work, Description of Egypt, which first introduces Europe to the authentic history of ancient civilization. In the 19th and 20th centuries, archaeologists make one discovery after another. In 1880, British archaeologist Flinders Petrie conducts the most precise measurements of the pyramid, discovering its incredible accuracy. The base is an almost perfect square with an error of only 2 centimeters on a side, 230 meters long. In the 1920s, Herbert Haslop excavates the workers' settlement south of the pyramid, proving that builders were not slaves but paid workers. In 1992, German archaeologist Rainer Stadelmann discovers the builders' cemetery with hundreds of tombs containing remains of workers buried with honors and provisions for the afterlife. The most dramatic discovery of recent decades occurred in 2013, when French archaeologists in a cave by the Red Sea found papyrus scrolls, the diary of an overseer named Mera, dated to the pyramid's construction time. This is the only surviving testimony of a contemporary who participated in construction. Mira describes in detail how his team of 40 workers transported white limestone blocks on barges from the Tura quarries to Giza, how they worked in 10-day cycles, how they received rations. This document, written 4,500 years ago, gave historians invaluable information about the logistics and organization of the grandiose project. Modern technology reveals new secrets of the pyramid without destroying its structure. In 2017, an international team of scientists used muon tomography, a method that registers cosmic rays passing through the pyramid, and discovered a huge, previously unknown void above the Grand Gallery. This void, more than 30 meters long, may be a hidden chamber or construction element, but its purpose remains a mystery. In 2023, this finding was confirmed using a combination of ground-penetrating radar, ultrasonic tomography, and electrical resistivity tomography, allowing the creation of detailed three-dimensional maps of the internal structure. In 2025, Japanese and Egyptian researchers using ground-penetrating radar discovered an L-shaped anomaly in the western necropolis near the pyramid, possibly an entrance to a previously unknown underground structure at a depth of 5 to 10 meters. The study also revealed a deeper anomaly at a depth of 16 to 33 feet with high electrical resistance, which may indicate voids or chambers. Another controversial finding of the same year, Italian researchers claimed discovery of a hidden city beneath the Giza plateau using high-frequency radar mapping, though this sparked fierce debates among Egyptologists. Despite centuries of research, the pyramid continues to pose questions. How exactly were massive granite blocks weighing up to 80 tons transported and lifted into the burial chamber? What was the precise configuration of the ramps? Are there still undiscovered chambers? In 2024, a group of engineers proposed a revolutionary theory that the construction of the step pyramid of Giza, predecessor to the Great Pyramid, used a hydraulic system with water lifts to raise stones through internal shafts. Although there's no direct evidence for the Great Pyramid, this theory shows that ancient Egyptians may have possessed more sophisticated technologies than we assumed. The pyramid has also had enormous cultural influence over millennia. Ancient Greeks included it in their list of 7 wonders of the world, the only wonder that survives to this day. Medieval Arab scholars created fantastic legends about pyramids as repositories of ancient wisdom and magical knowledge. In the 19th century, pseudo-scientific pyramidology arose, attempts to find encoded prophecies and mathematical constants in the pyramid's dimensions, most of which were refuted by science but continue to live in popular culture. Today, the pyramid attracts millions of tourists annually, serving as a symbol of Egypt and human capacity for monumental creativity. But it also reminds us of the price of greatness. Thousands of people devoted decades of their lives to this project. Many died from accidents, disease, exhaustion. The kingdom's enormous resources were directed toward building one tomb. One can debate the wisdom of such priorities, but it's impossible to deny the result, a structure that has outlived empires, religions, languages, climate changes, 4,500 years of history. The pyramid workers were organized into rotating teams who worked for a period and returned to their farms during harvest season. This system allowed Egypt to undertake massive construction projects while maintaining agricultural productivity. It was a sophisticated labor organization that benefited both the kingdom and the workers themselves. The stones you chisel with your hands today will stand when your great-grandchildren die of old age. They will stand when pharaohs are remembered only by names carved in stone. They will stand when the gods you pray to are forgotten and new gods take their place. They will stand when people from distant lands, speaking languages that don't yet exist, come to look at them in amazement. This is true immortality, not immortality of spirit or name, but immortality of deed, embodied in eternal stone. The year draws to a close. Your contract as a pyramid builder ends, and tomorrow you'll return to your home village in the Nile Valley, to green fields and the river's slow current, to life measured by floods and harvests, not stone blocks and royal cubits. But tonight, you stand one last time at the foot of the Great Pyramid, watching the sun slowly descend toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of copper and gold. The pyramid has grown this year. It rises before you like a man-made mountain, its faces ascending toward the sky at a perfect angle, each row of blocks precisely aligned, each stone tightly fitted to its neighbor. Somewhere there, among these millions of blocks, are those you processed with your own hands. You don't know exactly where. They're lost in the structure's immensity, have become indistinguishable parts of the whole. But you know they're there. Your labor, your craftsmanship, a piece of your life forever woven into this monumental creation. The sun's last rays touch the pyramid's apex, making it glow with warm light. This moment fills you with quiet peace. A year of hard labor behind you. A year of heat and dust, tired muscles and calloused hands. A year of simple joys, bread at breakfast, cool water in midday heat, evenings with family. A year of fellowship with other workers who became your brothers in common cause. A year of participating in something greater than yourself, in creating a wonder that will outlive centuries. You think of the great architect's words, spoken on that day when he inspected your work. Your name will be forgotten, but your work will remain forever. These words were truth. History will not preserve your name. Scribes will not record your biography on papyrus. Priests will not carve your story in stone. But your work, the even faces of blocks, precise angles, carefully processed surfaces, will testify to you thousands of years after all records decay and all memories fade. The air grows cooler. The working day ended long ago and the Giza Plateau sinks into evening silence. Guards have taken their posts around the construction site's perimeter. Tools are stored in warehouses. Workers have dispersed to their homes. Only you remain here, alone between earth and sky, between past and future, enjoying the last minutes in this sacred place. The first stars begin appearing in the darkening sky. One by one they ignite, like oil lamps in the vast temple of cosmos. There, in the east, rises Sa, the constellation Orion, celestial home of Osiris, lord of the underworld. The pyramid's shafts point to these stars, creating a path for the pharaoh's spirit in his ascent to eternity. You involuntarily whisper a prayer, not for yourself, but for the success of the great work in which you participated. May the pyramid fulfill its purpose. May it ensure the pharaoh's immortality. May it protect Maat and bring blessing to Egypt for countless generations forward. Time to return home. Tomorrow begins the long journey back to your village. You'll walk the same road by which you came a year ago, but you're no longer the same person. You've seen a wonder. You've touched eternity. You've been part of something so great it's impossible to fully comprehend. When you return to your fields and begin again to sow barley and wheat, when you follow the plough under the same sun, you'll sometimes stop and look north, where the pyramid rises above the horizon. And you'll know that part of you remained there forever, frozen in stone, stronger than memory, more enduring than life. You turn and slowly walk back to the settlement. Your steps are quiet on the cooling sand. The sky above you gradually transforms from blue to violet, then to deep indigo, studded with countless stars. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a luminous river, the celestial Nile, along which souls of the dead journey to eternal life. At home, your family already sleeps. Wife and children lie on mats, breathing slowly and evenly. You quietly lie down beside them, feeling the familiar texture of reed beneath your back, covering yourself with a woolen blanket. Your body is tired with the good tiredness of honest labor, tiredness that brings deep and peaceful sleep. Closing your eyes, you imagine one last time the pyramid standing under the starry sky. It will stand there tomorrow, and the day after, and 1,000 years from now. It will outlive pharaohs and dynasties, wars and peace, rise and fall of civilizations. It will witness incredible changes, new gods, new languages, new peoples, technologies now impossible to imagine. But it will remain silent and eternal, a monument not to one pharaoh, but to all those nameless thousands whose hands transformed dream into stone. Your breathing slows. Thoughts become blurred, floating like clouds over the desert. Somewhere far away a nightbird cries, somewhere wind rustles in palm leaves. But these sounds barely reach your consciousness now. You sink into sleep, deep and peaceful, the sleep of one who knows this year was not lived in vain, that you left a mark on eternity. Good night. May your dreams be peaceful, like desert sand after sunset. May your rest be deep, like the silence in the pyramid's heart. May you find peace, knowing that your work, like the stones you processed, will outlive time.